Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Get Visibility into Team Productivity. This event is brought to you in partnership with ActivTrak and produced by ActivTrak Media. Thanks so much for joining us on the webinar today. We've got a great event lined up for you. We're going to have a live demo, so I look forward to that. I'm sure that you do as well. And I mean, this is a hot topic with just about everyone working remotely and companies trying to figure out who's doing what and are we really productive. We need to get visibility into what's going on, and ActivTrak has a solution for that today, and you'll see it in action. So before we get started, just a few things that you should know about the webinar. My name is David Davis of ActivTrak Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. We want this to be educational. We encourage your questions in the questions panel. We appreciate all the hello and good morning messages from across the United States and around the world on the event today. But we also want your technical questions about the topic, and we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the event. We also have our best question prize to help encourage maybe some of those questions, help shake some questions loose. If something's on your mind, maybe that will help. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But we also have a number of handouts there in the handouts tab. I want to call your attention to those. There is a link to the ActivTrak plan and pricing information. There's a link to create your free account for the ActivTrak solution, and then a link to learn more about ActivTrak. Of course, we'll be talking about that in more detail throughout the event, but I want to call your attention to those now. If you want to check those out right now, go ahead and click on that, and that will open a new link in your web browser, or a new tab or a new page in your web browser there, and you can check it out after the event. We also have our Amazon $300 gift card door prize. I'll announce the winner of that at the end of the presentation today. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. Prize winners will be selected from those who are live in attendance and who meet the ActivTrak Media prize policy. You'll find that there in the handouts tab as well. Now, I mentioned our best question prize. That is for an additional Amazon $50 gift card, and we'll be selecting the winner of the best question prize for the questions that are submitted after the event. Of course, you still must meet the ActivTrak Media prize policy. All right, so with that, I'm excited now to bring on our expert presenter to talk about how to get visibility into team productivity. Welcome, Mr. Mark Allen, Head of Customer Experience at ActivTrak. Mark, are you there?
I sure am. Hey, David, good morning to you. Thanks very much. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. Excited to talk with all of you about how to get visibility into team productivity with ActivTrak. I do want to make sure that we, save some time for questions. So just so everyone's aware, as David already mentioned, we will go about 35 minutes into the presentation, including a live demo. And at that point, we'll then take some questions, really looking forward to see who's got the best question and shaking some of those loose, as you said, David. So today, getting started, there's a lot that has changed, obviously, over the last year. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the realities shaping our future, shaping our product, what kind of metrics you can use in order to understand how productive and how focused your employees are. And we'll go from there. Very excited about this. Now, before we really jump into some more of the content, I want to first start off with just explaining a little bit about who ActivTrak is and what we do. So ActivTrak is a cloud-first workforce productivity and analytics platform. And what that allows for you and your employees to do is to really, as we say, work wiser. It means that you have different tools now at your disposal with ActivTrak to be able to understand how long people are spending to get tasks done, if they're spending most of their time in the right types of applications and on the right kinds of websites, or if they need to maybe reallocate or refocus their energies. This can be useful for a number of different reasons. It could include process changes, changes to the skill set of your people, or even changes within the technology that you're using as well. So there's a variety of different options or rather outcomes that can be produced as a result of using the ActivTrak platform. So really looking forward to diving into some more details here with you guys. So, as we'd said, we've all changed the way that we work over the last year. Many of us have embraced working remotely. I think many of us have spent a lot of time in collaboration documents and slideshows and that sort of thing. We've learned how to collaborate more digitally on things. Thousands of different projects. Probably learned a lot of new tools. I would say we've even humanized our way that work interactions along the way. Things like bringing people, so to speak, kind of more into your home as you're going through Zoom calls, and just in general, the way that we have all worked. I mean, that has absolutely changed. So one thing has become clear, and that is that the future of work is really all about flexibility. Some people might call this WFX or work from anywhere, WFA. They may call it a hybrid. Regardless of what we've learned is that our eyes have actually been deceiving us when it comes to work and its relationship to productivity. So let's frame the problem first before we talk about where we spend our time and how to use ActivTrak. The journey to greater efficiency, productivity, and even organizational well-being starts at varying different places for really everyone. Some begin with looking for problems within the organization. So things like monitoring, who can I monitor and see what they're up to? And I understand that. However, the real value is in accelerating your organization's understanding of how we all work. So the habits of every employee, from the CEO to the most recent hire, good and bad. The process, where it's aligned, where it's misaligned, and then even technologies. Again, are these enablers to our productivity, or are they sources of distractions? And it's important to have statistics like these because obviously the stats don't lie. In the past year, we have seen holes poked in long-standing norms about how companies operate and really how people live. Workers live in a culture of constant interruptions in the workplace, clearly articulated by these various different statistics. So let's think about a couple of those kinds of distractions: email, meetings, various different alerts, phone calls, Slack messages, team messages. All of these sorts of things have made it impossible to focus and get deep work done. As a matter of fact, and I'll throw up another stat, the average worker checks their email 36 times an hour. They also take 16 minutes to refocus after handling a new email. So think about that for a minute. The number of times that you're getting an email in the day, or your employees are, and then how long does it actually take to refocus? It takes 16 minutes on average to do that. And many employees attend at least 60 meetings a month, through which about 91% of employees actually confess that they have daydreamed. And it takes most workers an hour to recover from interruptions from coworkers. And so these distractions, they lead to a decline in productivity, which translates to real lost revenue for the business. And while it will be tempting for companies to retreat to what they know, if businesses continue to have a clear-eyed perspective and sharp focus on their expedited digital transformations, meaning investments made, then they can emerge and create operational leverage that I think they've really never known before. This is a huge opportunity, and ActivTrak can play a small role in helping you uncover some of those opportunities. So the future of work will require that organizations begin to rethink really how work is done. And so reimagine, they're going to have to reimagine their office space and manage new opportunities and new risks. With the onset of COVID-19, I think workplace technology obviously changed nearly overnight, and office workstations became laptops at the kitchen table, in-person meetings became video chats, and wired networks became at-home Wi-Fi connections. Just a ton of different challenges. And over a year into this large-scale remote work, it's become clear that CIOs must rethink IT operating models to prepare for the long-term changes resulting from the pandemic. Even the terminology of remote work, referring to working outside of the office or a formal office location on an exceptional basis, that even seems outdated now. And this is more than a semantic shift. As organizations disrupt or normalize working from home, concepts like distributed workplace or hybrid workforce or flexible work and work from anywhere are much more apt for the current environment. And so clearly here with this slide, what we're actually showing is, oftentimes there is this temptation to lump remote workers together into one group. And it's really not an effective way of looking at your people. I mean, no different than you would not expect that various different people in your organization can perform all roles. They're going to have specializations. The same can be true with a lot of who the workforce is. And so these are the numbers. This is generationally, whether you accept these generational titles of millennial or Gen X or any of these others or not, these are, the demographic of who people in the workforce today are made up of. And so we all have, different things that we're shaped by. We're shaped by our own experiences and our own perceptions. Obviously we're motivated by different things. We have different communication styles. We have different worldviews. All of this is really to say that having an understanding of each of your employees and then being able to segment based upon maybe role or, the organization that they're a part of, or tools that they use, or applications that they use, or best time of day to engage with them in a creative environment. Like all of these sorts of things begin to have a material difference in the way that we operate our business. And so providing some visibility to that is essential. Now, CIOs, obviously, they made a lot of investments in 2021. And, these numbers here, I think they don't really paint the full and entire picture of what we're going to see, because by 2024, 25% of traditional large enterprise CIOs, they're going to be held accountable for a lot more than what they already are. It's really about the digital business operational results, almost becoming more of a COO by proxy. And so a lot of change, and I think that's pretty clear to all of us at this point. Just when we thought that the customer experience, or CX, really couldn't get any bigger as a catalyst for business growth, then the pandemic arrived, and it sparked an even greater focus on CX and how it builds customer loyalty during the most challenging times. So for work to improve in 2021, being intentional about building a dynamic environment that focuses on the growth of each and every team member will really be the key. 2 in 3 employees believe that the skills required to do their job are going to evolve in 2021. So being ready to adapt and ready to grow. Workers' top 3 areas for personal development in the year ahead are bolstering IT and technology proficiency, building confidence, and honing leadership capabilities. For organizations, flexibility is the foundation for resilience in the year ahead, and reinforced by the vast majority of workers, over 73%, saying that organizations that can be more resilient to change if plans and approaches are flexible. So really tapping the full power of your organization's people depends on applying the right employee experience technology. And the bottom line about EX is this: it serves to create a workplace that enables your people to live their best life and to do their best work. So again, we've embraced working remotely. We've started collaborating in all these different ways. And really, it's more now about how do we change our focus? Clearly, working the same old way just isn't going to be something that can continue in the future. And so ActivTrak collects a rich set of data that can be viewed and used to support multiple different use cases. So for instance, here you can more efficiently manage your hybrid workforce with visibility into employees' work habits, no matter where they are. You can get insights into working hours to better understand and align work across different teams. You can compare productivity trends across remote and on-site employees, and you can even identify productivity blockers like workflow bottlenecks and common distractions. So ActivTrak gives you not only data, but guidance on how to leverage it, which is unique in the industry. You'll get the tools you need to identify trends, to coach your employees on time management and methods for avoiding burnout, to increase employee engagement and retaining those employees. One of the other awesome use cases for ActivTrak is being able to control tool sprawl and the costs that are associated by analyzing usage reports across all of your company's or applications, including your cloud applications. So that's going to be useful for renewal planning and technology adoption. And then finally, even maintaining security and compliance with custom real-time alerts about high-risk activity, and then going back and viewing a detailed audit trail through reports. So with that, I do want to make sure that we jump into the product here. And I'm going to go head over to app.activtrak.com. If you have an account with us, please feel free to follow along at home, so to speak. But otherwise, feel free to just take this in. So this is the ActivTrak dashboard, and this is part of our premium offering. So this is the insights for the executive summary page. And very clearly here, you can tell there's a lot going on, all sorts of great data that's pouring into the system here that is providing meaningful insights to you and your organization. So things like, how efficient have my people been the last 7 days? And one of the ways that we're looking at this is just simply, number of productive hours, number of total hours, and then this focus time that we've been talking about a little bit so far, right? All those distractions that take place. And I'm happy to jump into some of the details here a little bit later as we go through. But for example, focus time, that would imply the amount of time that your employees can spend during their workday actually focused on deep work. And being able to measure these kinds of things week over week is very, very important to you as a member of your business, whether you're in management, whether you're, the owner of your business. Being able to understand and identify gaps and trends where maybe people weren't working quite as hard, or they were a little bit less focused. In February, if I were to go back here, maybe just one more week, which I won't do right now for purposes of the demo, but if I were to go back even just one more week, maybe two, we would see where we had a freeze here in Central Texas. And so you better believe that all of our Texas employees, their productive time as well as their focus time went straight down, just as you might expect. But it's not always going to be, emergency situations where people have to stop working. It's also going to be other things too. Maybe news inside of your organization. It might be changes to the organization. It may be a new product that's getting launched. It might be a variety of different things. So being able to measure and actually see how your people's focus and productive hours during the day are measured is going to be really important for that. We also tend to show this idea of workload balance, which is really it's the idea about trying to understand, are my people overworked? Are they underworked? Are they, working on the right types of things? And so we do have thresholds set up for what the utilization level of an employee can be. And so you will see here that we've got a couple of people that are underutilized. I'm sure if I click on the details of this in a little bit, we'll probably see some people who are a little bit overworked as well, might be at risk for burnout. That'd be an awesome opportunity for a manager to reach out and to, have an intervention with that employee. Try to maybe say, hey, this isn't working. I don't want you to burn out. Let's reduce hours or try to distribute some of the project or load that you're working on. And then also being able to understand some trends. So things like the usage of our tools. So we have a pretty large sales team here at ActivTrak, as well as some engineers too. And so we'll see a variety of different tools getting used, and we can see how those are getting used more and more over the last 7 days. So for example, we saw a percentage change of about 1% in the positive for our sales tools, representing about 37% of our total time that our sellers spend in those tools. Those are things like Salesforce or your CRM product, that sort of thing. And of course, these categories that you see here, we actually pre-allocate them on your behalf based on the data that we have from well over 100,000 different users across multiple different companies, 9,000 different organizations. But then you also have the ability to change these categories and update them as needed. So there's a few others that are really useful. Obviously, the team comparison is another, where if I have maybe more than one team, I can come in and look at them actually side by side. For here, though, I'm just going to look at them kind of in this vertical format. And so we can quickly see the sales team that's in the office. They're working roughly about 8 hours a day. The account executives, they might be out in the field a little bit more, working from home. They tend to have a few less hours in a day. Remote sales team, same sort of thing. And so you can go through each one of your teams and start to understand focus, especially as it relates to different orgs, different parts of the business. So our customer success team, although they're working a good amount of time, they don't get to spend a lot of time working on deep work. And again, that may be just simply because of the role. It may not be a good thing or a bad thing. It might just depend upon what's normal. So setting a baseline is really important for this as well. And I'll show you how we can actually set those baselines on a per group basis just for that exact reason. Maybe one or two more spots that I'll go into here just briefly are the activity breakdown report, and then we'll get into workload balance. So activity breakdown gives us this concept of where we can, again, see the average productive hours per day, but then also really start to understand at the individual level, within a single group, how those people are working. So one of the things that I've got here is these purple dots you may notice. These are the individual goals for each one of these employees. So for Scott, the goal is actually 7.5 hours. As you can see, he is well over that. He's roughly at about 9.5 hours on average over the last 7 days. So clearly Scott and maybe even 40 are working far too much right now. They're overshooting by 2 hours. It might be, or actually 40's got an even different one. He's got a different goal of 7. So based upon the manager, you can set and decide what the benchmark should be for either a team or for individuals, and then work to make sure that they're trying to get towards that goal. The trends page inside of the activity breakdown will also allow for you to kind of take a look at these trends and patterns over time, really week over week, so you can see the difference from one percentage to another. And then let's jump over to workload balance. So the workload balance is really all about utilization, and are people working within that time range? Are they overworking? Are they underworking? And so right here, you see I've got this limited to just the last 7 days. I've got it as my account exec team, and I'm looking at everything. If people are underutilized, healthy, or overutilized. And you can tell right off the bat, 40 overutilized, clearly. And the reason for that is because he is greater than, I believe the number is actually 30%. So he's 30% working more hours than what he should be based upon that goal. So when you set up a goal as a manager, you have the ability to say, all right, 40, you should be working 7 or 7.5 hours a day. This is kind of the time that we would like, to see on a regular basis. And if it's over that percentage mark, then we're going to flag it as being red, which in this case means he's just working too many hours. Now, you do have the ability to modify this, obviously, but the default is currently 30% because that's where we generally find that you want to shoot for. So the goal is right in the middle of this 30%. And again, a great opportunity for manager to have this conversation with 40. Scott looks like he might just be getting it there on the same end. So he may almost start to be overutilized really quickly. Something else for his manager to look out for. Now, as far as setting those benchmarks and goals, you just simply go into the benchmarks and goals section on the left under insights, and you'll get to see all of your team's top quartile averages for yesterday, last week, last 3 weeks, and you can set the goal right here. And this can be done on a per group basis. So we can set it for multiple groups if I wanted to, do a multi-select and then set the time. And that's not only for productive hours per day, but that's also for focused hours per day. So the amount of time that they spend being focused. And then at the individual level, we've got this great membership kind of chart that pops up, and it will allow me to dig in for what's called personal insights here in just a moment. So I can see yesterday how much Scott worked versus 40 versus Christian versus a lot of others. And we can even see the change in percentage over day by day by day. So 40 was down quite a bit. Dan was down quite a bit. May have been some sort of reason why. It might have been, they were out sick or out on working on a project. Not really sure what that might be. But again, just an additional kind of insight for the manager to go and get an understanding of. Clicking into the personal insights for one of these particular users like 40, this is actually something that can be shared with the employee. And many of our customers share this with their employees because they love to see this, right? You can subscribe them right here using the subscribe button in the upper right-hand corner. And this will allow for you to punch in their email address, talk about how often you want to send this, how often it should get sent out. And you can even apply specific filters to it for an individual if you want. And so a PDF version of this would get emailed to this end user every day or every week, however often I want. And this would be a way for them to track their own usage. And a lot of our employees do this. A lot of our users do this. Now, there's a ton of information in here that we haven't even gone into yet. So far, most of what I've talked about has been related to, sorry about that. I think I hit the back button. Most of what I've talked about as we wait for that to load has been related to productive hours or focused hours. But one of the things that I'm going to be able to pull up for you guys is about what is actually causing those distractions. So let's go pick a member here again, jump into personal insights, and we'll see where distractions are taking place. So we scroll down just a little bit and we've got things like, hey, here's your focused amount of time. This is a brand new element that we've added, which is collaboration hours per day. So how much of your time are you spending being collaborative? If I scroll down, I can even get ideas as to how they spend their time throughout the day. So you can see that 40 here tends to be, or Scott rather, tends to be a little bit more collaborative from around 9 o'clock to about noon, and then it starts to taper off throughout the rest of the day. Same thing with being focused, right? So he actually tends to be the opposite. It's a little bit less focused in the morning, except for where he has a big stretch at 7. And then his focus time actually increases later on, probably as a result of him collaborating less. He's probably spending more time in deep thought, responding to things, writing up agendas and proposals and all those other pieces of work that he does on a regular basis. So this will show those websites and apps that steal attention or affect your focus. And what this is showing is things like Salesforce, mail.google.com. This is the actual number of times or attention shifts that Scott has been taken out of mail.google.com. And again, this is all within, this average time period that we're looking here. So this is on a day. So this is 257 times per day that's happening. And there's about 4.4 hours in his day that he's spending multitasking related to Gmail. And so what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that when you're in Gmail, you're going to be dancing around all over the place. That in and of itself may not be bad, but there's some ways to optimize. For example, many of our people here within ActivTrak, instead of using Gmail, they've actually switched over to using Salesforce email, which integrates with Gmail. But the reason why is because all of the information that they may need related to a sales opportunity, maybe the prospect's name, their organization, their phone number, the company's revenue, number of employees, all of those sorts of things, those are going to be populated inside of Salesforce. They're not going to be populated inside of Gmail necessarily. And so what many of our customers have found is that there's a way for them to go about integrating other data points from other business systems into a single system so their employees can spend less time shifting around. Another great example of this is on my team here at ActivTrak. On average, in order to service an account, about 6 months ago, you would have to go to 5 or 6 different tools. And we actually discovered this by using data from ActivTrak. So using that information, I was able to say, all right, we can take some of these pieces of information and start to integrate them into one another, maybe take our employees out of 2 or 3 of those apps altogether. So they're not having to go do an extra login, an extra lookup, an extra copy, and an extra paste just to go out, what they were doing to try to serve our customers. So that, on the one hand, it allowed for us to actually service our customers much, much faster. And on the other hand, it allowed for a simpler and better employee experience for them to be able to accomplish their work. So these are just some of the insights that we see. Again, this particular person, Scott, currently sitting at healthy, but probably right at the borderline. You can see that he spent 10 days in the last month being overutilized and about 12 days being in a healthy state. Normally he starts at around 6:45 in the morning, ends his day a little bit after 5 o'clock. You can see the number of average breaks and minutes per break that he's taking as well. So again, so many useful pieces of information and data that are available to you within the ActivTrak platform. So let me stop sharing there. I do want to jump into just a couple of additional slides, and then we're going to get right into everyone's questions here in about 5 minutes. So when we talk about productivity and measuring it, and how it affects the individual, the role, the remote versus office, all these different ways of looking at if your employees are productive or not. A lot of this does come down to these 3 items on the left, which are effort, alignment, and focus. And so what's very typical with our customers as we see them come in the door in ActivTrak is they tend to start off through what we call the productivity journey. And the productivity journey begins with just this very small little sapling here, which is, you may walk in and start just doing some observing and some reporting. And this is to answer those simple kinds of questions like, are my people working? When are they working? How much of their time is productive? Are they on social media too much? These are common kinds of questions. And they're what I would actually tend to call a little bit more on the, immature side of things for the productivity journey. This is very, very typical. Most people begin kind of this way. But as the journey evolves and as you kind of mature your understanding around awareness of productivity and workforce analytics, you start to understand and realize that, okay, we can iterate off this. We can modify behaviors. And so that leads you to naturally begin to ask questions about your org, like what applications are my people using? How much time are we as a group spending in meetings? That's actually an interesting one. When I put a meeting together now, I'm very sensitive to the number of people that are in that meeting. So quick thought exercise I normally go through now as a result of being aware of my time and my people's time is that if I've got 20 people on the team and they're all going to attend a 30-minute meeting, well, that's basically 10 work hours that are devoted to that one meeting. That helps me to really keep that agenda tight, make sure that we're talking about the things that we need to, we're advancing the agenda, and we're moving on. Otherwise, there tends to be sometimes this, in some organizations, a little bit of chaos around meetings and, should this person be in it or not? Some people are zoned out. That's not useful. So it's just another great way to look at this. But in any case, getting this kind of information from ActivTrak really does allow for you to understand and start to modify your own behaviors. Another question that many people start to ask themselves are, how much time are we spending collaborating? Perfect use case for that, collaboration time that I showed just a moment ago. And then as we really start to accelerate or turn the dial on this, that's when organizations begin to develop their people by coaching them using some of the data from ActivTrak. And so where this gets you into is really looking at some of those metrics we were looking at towards the end, which are what applications induce context switchings. So which ones break your focus, cause you to come out of that application that you were working in and go to something else? Which apps are we using that we might discontinue? Getting alignment on that. Are we improving week over week, month over month, or are we declining? Or is this kind of a roller coaster and it goes up and down depending upon a variety of factors? And then of course, who's at risk for burnout? These are the kinds of questions that organizations are able to ask and then go and answer for themselves using some of this data that comes from ActivTrak. And so one of the questions that we get very, very frequently that I do want to talk about just for a moment before we get into your live questions here are, how do I introduce ActivTrak to my organization? Sometimes people feel like, well, this might feel a little bit like this is too intrusive. So what should I do? Number one, we always advocate that you should be transparent and you should talk to your employees and tell them why you're going to do this. Explaining the intent goes a very, very long way towards making sure that there is trust between yourself and your employees. And then, of course, ensuring the employees that their data privacy is going to be paramount. We actually have a whole lot written up about this. If you want to know more, you can go to activtrak.com/security. And we've got a lot talking about privacy and security. But really, what this is about is we've taken steps to be able to ignore certain things that employees are doing on their computers during work, non-work hours, or maybe even redacting sensitive information out of the screens of various different uh, you know dashboards that may come in here. So there's a lot about this that we have taken to really ensure that the privacy of the employee is still safeguarded, even though we are getting an idea and an understanding of where they're spending all their time. And so it's really clear about the kind of data that you're collecting, or that we are collecting from the employees. And there's a few key things here. By design, this is not insight, or this is not oversight. This is insight. By design, we have no key logging. We have no access to the file system itself. And we do secure all of the ActivTrak data inside of world-class data centers managed and secured by Google Cloud Platform. And then finally, the last step in ensuring that you can successfully introduce ActivTrak to your own organization is sharing these productivity insights. Using those insights as coaching opportunities, subscribing your employees for various different emails and reports that we kind of walked through there for a moment. This kind of, I think, understanding or visibility at the individual contributor level or the manager level even can be very, very useful for people's own self-awareness. Most of us think we work really hard. Most of us think that putting that document together shouldn't take very long, but then in reality we find out, oh, it took me 4 hours. I thought it was going to take 20 minutes. So we tend to overestimate our work, and we tend to underestimate the amount of time needed to accomplish that task. And so, again, all of this can be useful for the employee to get a really good understanding of how they work well, when they can collaborate with others effectively, and all those sorts of things. We do have a whole lot more written up about introducing ActivTrak to your organization, including several different PowerPoints, presentations, and things like that can be useful for delivering this message to your team. And then finally, before we get into questions here, I do want to mention that we do have a resource kit for introducing ActivTrak to your org. So these are those PowerPoint decks and email templates, and messaging guide, checklist, frequently asked questions from your employees. All that good stuff is found here. And so we'll make that available to everyone here at the end of this cast, or I believe it's actually available in the handout section now. All right. Well, with that, David, I wanted to make sure that we do have time for some live questions. So I will turn it over to you for those questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great presentation, Mark. A really cool demo. I love seeing the product in action here. I know this could help a lot of companies out there get a handle on productivity and get some visibility into what's going on with their employees. And even as you mentioned, even the employees themselves can get a handle into their own productivity. So, Mark, the first question I see here comes from Brian. He's asking, how does ActivTrak capture these activities? Is it mouse movement, keystrokes, and then as a second part there, can it take into account phone calls, the phone calls that the employees might be on?
Yeah, great question. So the first part of that is we use a very lightweight, discrete agent that gets installed on the operating system. So we have these agents available for Windows, for Mac OS, and for Chrome, both the browser and Chrome OS. Second to that is, yes, we do actually look at mouse clicks and keyboard movement, but not specifically where they are on the screen. What we're doing instead is we're using that to note if the user is active or not. And so what the agent looks for is it looks for the active window. That's actually how we got the name ActivTrak. We're tracking the active window at the time. So when you're on your computer, you may have 10, 20, 30 different windows open, but you're really only interacting with one. Right now, I'm only interacting with Google Chrome. So that would show up as the predominant activity of what I'm doing right now. And so if I click into something else, like if I were to click over to Excel or Outlook or something like that, then the focus would change over to that application. So very quickly, that is how the application works. Now, there is no UI for this agent, so it installs and then it just runs quietly, and you don't even have to think about it. In the background, it will secure all the data, send it over a secure encrypted channel back to Google Cloud's services, and that's where we process it. And then there was a second part of that question, David. Could you repeat that for me?
Yes, Brian was asking, is there any way to track phone calls, or what if the employee is on the phone? Is that taken into account in any way?
Great question. So because we're monitoring the operating system and not iOS devices and not Android devices, not those kinds of phones, we're not able to track phone calls automatically in that way. However, many people nowadays are using soft phones. They'll use Zoom or Ring Central or any other variety of different soft phones. So if you're using those, we will absolutely track time spent in that application. As a matter of fact, if you have call logs that are interesting to you, that are coming from your PBX or your phone system, we can actually marry up that data with a feature of ours called ActivConnect, which will effectively take all of the information coming from ActivTrak plus any other information maybe you might have sitting side by side, like your phone system info, and we can help you to kind of pair that information up. We've done that with multiple customers at this point.
Oh, that's very cool to be able to integrate that data together to get a complete picture or greater visibility. Excellent. Let's see. Next question from Simon, who's asking, for employees who are doing inappropriate activities during work hours, will video be captured of those activities, which can be used as proof? Also, have any of your clients talked about potential privacy concerns? So it's another two-part question.
You bet. So number one on that is we actually do not have a video feature for ActivTrak. We do have, that's done by design because we're not so much interested in monitoring, but really much more about, insights over long periods of time. I understand that there definitely are going to be use cases where you've maybe found an employee doing something inappropriate and you need to maintain, legal records of that. And so in that case, I would just recommend turning on screenshots. We have the ability to take screenshots based upon URL, name of, if a specific keyword shows up in a URL or a title bar or the executable, or if it's, too much time spent on a particular website, we can send a notification or take a screenshot. So there's a variety of different ways to do that. And it's fairly simple using our alarms to do that. The second part of that question is privacy. So again, we take privacy very seriously. We do not review or look at or scan or anything like that, any of the information that comes in for usage here. The only time, that any of your information is available is to you, or if you're working maybe with a member of our technical support team to troubleshoot something. But generally speaking, the privacy aspect of this is important data, right? This is where people are going on their computers, and there's a lot of information that could be taken advantage of if somebody wanted to do that. And so privacy is very important to us. We're currently actually pursuing our SOC 2 security certification right now in order to help secure some of those results. And we're taking every other action we can possibly think of in order to protect your data and our customers' data.
Excellent. And then also kind of along the same lines there, Sandra is asking if you have any recommendations as to how to, approach this with the employees, and in terms of them, not feeling like this is a one-way, application where it only benefits management, but it doesn't help them.
Sure. It's a great question. And I think it goes back to the, how we introduce it. So we'll definitely share that out as a resource. But to me, it's really all about, again, being transparent with your employees and sharing those insights with them. If you're sharing the insights with them, if they're getting a report of it every single day, that's going to help them out tremendously. The other thing that you can do that we've actually done a couple of times before is you can gamify this a bit, and you can compare one team versus another, or you can even show an employee kind of where they stack rank compared to their colleagues. So it just totally depends upon how you want to do that, but For most of us, I think the biggest thing is just having your employer be honest with you, be transparent with you, as well as sharing those insights. Then when that's done, this is effective in terms of rolling it out, and we see a very wide adoption rate with our customers and their employees.
Excellent advice. Let's see. Next question from Roshan, who says, more and more employees are using SaaS applications out there, Microsoft Office 365, things on the web. Employees use 15 to 20 different applications. They say, is there a way to aggregate that data or get insight into those applications that are being used?
Yes. Yeah. Any application that you use, whether it's a web-based application or a SaaS application, as you call it there, or a 32-bit application, 64-bit application like Excel or Outlook, those are all going to be, counted towards the time here or tracked in the time. So that'll be taken care of automatically. The way that we would aggregate all of this is just simply through what we call categories. And so, if we had a category of mail tools, that mail tools category might include Outlook.exe. It might include mail.google.com. It might include Outlook365.com. It might include a variety of different things, but you can categorize all of those together and just simply call it an email tool. And it doesn't have to be just, generic like email tool. It could be something specific. So if you had, like, for example, I know that Salesforce uses a number of different URLs and a number of different applications that may, be interacting with their data. And so what we do is we take all of that information and we categorize it as Salesforce. And then anything that shows up as that category just appears as that one application. So we've certainly got very simple ways to aggregate that for you.
Excellent. I want to remind everyone about the poll question on the screen there. If you haven't answered that yet, we encourage you to do so. I'll just leave it up for a little bit longer. Next question from Luna, who's asking, is ActivTrak SQL friendly? Can we export data for reporting?
It certainly is. So that is part of that Active Connect feature that I was mentioning before. That takes advantage of Google's BigQuery. And so it's all T-SQL language that you can use. We do give you full access to that data set so that you can, export it and bring it into your own BI tool if you would like, or we already have a number of different BI tools available via Google Data Studio, Microsoft BI, Power BI, and Tableau. So we've got some ways to kind of get you started on that already, and then you can, of course, slice and dice that however you would like to.
Very nice. And I think this is an associated question. Sandra's asking, do they need to buy additional tools to measure and track the activities?
No, this is all built right in. So ActivTrak is your one tool to buy to help you manage and track all these activities.
Nice. Renato's asking, how is ActivTrak licensed?
Great. ActivTrak is licensed per user. So not per computer, not per machine, but simply per user. So if you have 50 employees, that would be 50 licenses. This is a perpetual license as long as you're, an active subscriber with us. And so that data will be retained and continue on as long as you're a customer of ActivTrak. So we do have an unlimited data retention policy at this point.
Very nice. Next question, how do I avoid capturing activity outside of work hours?
Yeah, we have an easy to use scheduling feature for that. And what that does is it allows you to establish work hours where activity should be tracked. Anything outside of those work hours, the activity would simply be dropped and never recorded in the ActivTrak platform.
Nice. And then will this work with terminal servers or virtualized desktops?
Absolutely. It's a really great way to do this because then you only have to do, one or two agent installs, very, very simple. And then anytime you install the agent on the computer, and then anytime a user logs into that operating system, the agent will pick that user up automatically, create an entry for them in ActivTrak if they don't already have one, and begin tracking out all their activities so you can start getting insights on them. So we see really good success with using, VDI systems or terminal servers.
Excellent. Let's see. Scott's asking, if I use this to monitor a PCI environment, can it redact certain applications or card holder data, as well as if it was monitoring in a HIPAA environment?
Great question. In that case, I would actually recommend you just don't turn on the screenshots. There's a variety of different ways to have some screenshots turned on for some cases, but then if a URL is entered that could potentially have employee or not employee, but customer data or payment data or PII, PHI, then you can exclude it, number one, or I would really recommend just turning off the screenshots altogether. And then that way the PII would not be picked up.
Very cool. That's a nice feature. Next question, if someone is using their personal device, how do we track work-related activities while respecting their privacy?
Probably the simplest way to do it in that scenario is to, number one, got to say you do need to get permission from the employee to actually install this type of agent on a personal computer. So I just want to make sure that caveat is said. Assuming you do have their permission and their go ahead to do it, what I recommend to everybody doing this is to create 2 profiles in Windows or on the operating system. This could work for Mac too. So you'd have one profile on the operating system called work and another one just simply called personal. Obviously, they log into the work one to do work tasks. That would be the only one that gets tracked. We have a feature called Do Not Track, very simple, to exclude any users that maybe you don't want to monitor. And so in that case, you would just simply select the personal account and say, do not monitor this account, and we'll never pay attention to it.
Nice. I like that. Well, I know we're starting to run out of time here in our webinar window. Before we go, though, I wanted to see, how should folks get started with this? What recommendations or options do you have for them to try this out?
Yeah, absolutely, David. So we've got a number of different options and helpful resources for you. So first and foremost, you want to create a free account. You can get started today within a couple of minutes. Just go to ActivTrak.com, go up to the upper right-hand corner. You'll see where it says free trial, or you can type in free-trial as it says here. We have a number of other resources to help get you kick-started off and make sure that you are successful with your implementation. The very first one is our help center that can be visited at support.activtrak.com. We do have a blog with all sorts of thought leadership related to, HR type best practices and management best practices and kind of ways to work well with your employees. And then we do have our resource center, which includes a number of white papers, downloads, and webcasts that we have done previously. The other thing that I will mention is we do have an onboarding team that has grown even more beyond these 4 ladies that you see here that will help you get started on your track to being productive. And so that will include setup assistance, continuing education, one-on-one setups and trainings for you, as well as 24/5 live support that can actually be found directly inside the application. So if you go to our website, or if you're in our app of app.activtrak.com, like you see here, you can just go to the bottom right-hand corner, and someone will be there available for you 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And our average response time for getting back to you is about 35 seconds. So very, very quick. We're here to help. We're here to, get you started on your way to being more productive as an organization.
Awesome. Very nice. Really cool demo. We got tons of questions here. I'm afraid we won't have time to get to all of these questions, but we do appreciate all the excellent questions that came in on the event today. Before you go, I want to remind you about the handouts tab. It's there that you'll find links to the ActivTrak plan and pricing information, as well as a link to create your free account over at ActivTrak.com. Mark, thanks so much for being on the event today.
David, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
And yeah, thanks to everyone out there in the audience for joining us on the webinar. I hope that you learned a lot and have a great day. And one more thing before we go, I want to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. That's going out to Andy Wynn from Kansas. Congratulations, Andy Wynn from Kansas. And we'll be contacting our best question prize winner as well after the event. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.